Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Sophie Howard, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm super excited for our time together. Like we talk about on every episode, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And so with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go all the way up to today. And then we want to talk about this amazing book that you wrote. I want to get some time in on that, and I'm super excited to talk about it because I think it's amazing what you're doing. So let's start off, if it's okay, let's start off with where you were born.
Super. Well, thank you firstly for having me on the show. I was born in the countryside, rural north of England, in the United Kingdom. So grew up, very nice childhood, ponies and country life, lots of nice friends, zooming around on bikes, very lovely time. And then did well at school, went to university in Scotland. And then on one of the years on the master's part of my degree, I got the opportunity to go to New Zealand. So here I am in my 40s, still in New Zealand and having such a nice time. So I've got young children and they're both primary school age, and just been out walking the dog around the lake, just moved back to the country, having had lots of city, big career years in between. So I used to work for the New Zealand government and I did all the tech transfer for a university for about 9 years as well. So quite a lot of startup career time, and always just been wired to be entrepreneurial from the very beginning. Never saw myself long-term in any corporate role. And then I guess the latest evolution is that switch from the wild ride of entrepreneurial life with its thrills and spills through to trying to be a more rational investor. So people obviously listening to your show, like thinking like investors and, want some future certainty, some level of risk, but always, I think if you can master that skill of making really sound investment decisions and really get clear on what asset classes suit you and what you do and what you don't do, and how much you read and what you try and follow, because you can't follow everything and you can't do everything.
Right.
And there's so many podcasts and there's so many, new crypto coins one week, or housing markets doing something else over here, or stocks and shares doing, all over the place.
Yeah, it's true.
So that's what I'm trying to upskill on more now, sort of in my private time, is sort of just really becoming a more sophisticated investor. I've got some property and I've done really well with online businesses. So that's what I know, online business. So what I'm doing, and what we'll probably end up talking about a bit today, is that intersect between online business and investing, because that's what I've been doing for the last few years, is buying online businesses as an investor, not growing them as an entrepreneur. Buying, not building them. So that's been a bit of a switch, and it's been going really well, hence the book.
That's cool. So can we back up for just a second? So when you grew up out in the countryside, right? Was it near a particular town?
Yeah, it was sort of near Newcastle in the north of England.
Okay. So what was your favorite thing about growing up there?
Oh, I was just horse mad. Ponies, 24/7. Couldn't get enough ponies in my day. So
cool.
Lots
so
of
growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
Probably an English teacher, actually. I mean, I've had multiple family members, and I went to some really good schools. I went to private school all the way through, and I had an English teacher, Mrs. Foster, who really got me into reading and thinking critically, and kind of just not plodding through a curriculum, which is obviously what she'd been given to teach. But she was a fantastic teacher, and you don't get too many of those in a, 2-3 sets of schools, different subjects. You get exposed to dozens of teachers, but she was fantastic and got me into reading. And then I was reading year groups way ahead of my age all the way through, And then I think because I could read fast and understood more complex things, all the academic side of schooling came pretty easily, and still read lots today. But podcasts are a bit of a twist there, because I quite like listening to podcasts too, and it cuts into my reading time.
Yeah.
So I do a bit of both. And I like audiobooks now as well. I've just listened to some really good books on audiobooks that have been on my to read list for years, but I never get to. But I'm quite happy to listen to half an hour in the car here and there, then I get through them. So it's
Yeah.
a good
Well,
format, just audio in the modern day.
for me, I have to sit still to read a book,
Yeah.
and I don't sit still well.
Yeah.
So the audiobook thing for me and podcasts work really, really well, because I can do those on the go. I can be exercising, I can be driving, I can, all that kind of stuff, right? I can make use of that time if I'm not on the phone, like returning phone calls or whatever. I can make use of that time, and it works out well. So yeah, I know exactly how you feel. So in high school, was your favorite subject English?
Yeah, but I ended up doing a degree in science. So I did a genetics degree.
Okay.
I quite liked science as well. Still read lots of books. I did A-level English, but I did science at university, so headed down that track. I just quite liked the discipline of scientific thinking. I think that's been quite helpful in business. I don't know how much of your degrees you ever use. I've done an MBA as well. But I think that critical thinking of science and being able to crunch numbers and not get too intimidated if you get a whole page of complex looking stuff you don't understand, which happens all the time in business, far too often. But, if you've got a liberal arts degree and been taught to think critically, you can come in with all the different angles and, the different perspectives, the different stakeholders and things. But I think if it's like a big, complicated funnel or the performance of a business, I think if you've got scientific training, I never thought I'd go into business, but I think science training's quite good discipline for sort of asking good questions. What can you test? If you do a split test, you set it up in a scientific way. If there's lots of numbers, you should be able to do enough maths to get through those. So I think it's been quite good. And then applying science in the real world is obviously better than science and theory. So I did a year on exchange to a New Zealand university where I studied twinning in lambs. So we've got lots of sheep farmers in the South Island of New Zealand.
There you go.
And the farmers really like to know how many lambs they're getting. There's like a ideal sort of sweet spot ratio of lambs to singles or triplets for the quality of the grass. If you've got really steep mountainous hill country, you don't want triplets because there's not enough grass for everyone.
Right.
And if you've
That
got
could be a
really lush
problem.
and if you've got lush, flat pastures going forever, then you want as many as you can get. So I did a degree with my master's, but doing some research on twinning in lambs, which I've never used since. But we do have a strong.
MBA?
Yeah, I did my MBA in Wellington. I was working for the tech transfer company there.
Right.
And the chair of my board was also the MBA director. And he liked the work I did. And I said, oh, could I do an MBA one day? And he said, sure. So I think I was the youngest person to do an MBA at that business school. I was 23, which was quite young for business school. But I was a manager in my day job at the time, and I stayed there for 9 years and I worked really hard for them. So I think they got their money's worth and I got a great education and good experience out of it, and really enjoyed doing it. And the management subjects were so different, and the group of people doing the MBA was so different from the scientists, such a different bunch of personalities and brains and even levels of IQ. I mean, nobody does a master's in genetics in a lightweight kind of way. It's pretty grunty science.
Yeah.
And then some of these subjects were also touchy-feely. Oh my goodness. There were lots of corporate people and like middle managers in government. It was the capital city. So we had lots of government employees on the MBA program who were like in a mid-career sort of plateau trying to bust on through the ceilings by getting an MBA. And I looked at their jobs and I was like, oh my goodness, how many reports can you write? And what is this jargon you speak in? And oh my goodness, that was so not me. So although I lived in the capital city, and it's a very small capital and it's a very nice place, Wellington, I started an Amazon FBA business when I was on maternity leave with my daughter. And we get 2 years maternity leave in New Zealand. I mean, there's pros and cons to all these things, but 2 years maternity leave is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I said, well, if I don't start a business now, it's never. And I started an Amazon FBA business that went really, really well. I sold it a year and a bit later for $1 million US. Wow. So I was very happy with that.
So what's an FBA business?
FBA is fulfilled by Amazon. So that's the selling physical products on Amazon strategy. So I figured out how to do that, launched something online from home with a baby and a toddler, and it went really well and just kept scaling it. And might have had some beginner's luck, but I certainly had a good run. And then did another business and sold that as well. So had a few kind of big cash injections that cleared the mortgage. And then from there, with the children about to start school, we moved down to this tiny, tiny town in the South Island of New Zealand called Wanaka. And, there's a lake, there's 3 ski fields. It's beautiful. It's kind of like the Aspen of Southern Hemisphere or somewhere like that. It's quite posh and lots of retirees. Lots of the farmers will have a holiday house here, kind of a resort town, really. And it's very nice. So this is where we live now, and the children are a bit older. They're both at school all day, so I've got my time back. And having had these nice cash flowing online businesses, thought, well, wonder if I could just buy somebody else's, or was sort of thinking of doing up other people's businesses that had opportunity. But actually, I think the nicest thing to do is just to buy successful online businesses and keep operating them well. So I've been doing quite a bit of that.
So a question for you. So you're on maternity leave, and is it your first baby or your second?
It was the second baby. So I had a toddler who would have been about 2, and a newborn. I think she was 3 months old when I started the Amazon business.
So what was it that made you make the decision to start an FBA business with Amazon?
Well, I'd been casting around looking for a good business model or opportunity that I could run from home. So I had limited capital, wasn't earning, but we did have 2 cars, and I figured we didn't both need a car if I was at home, because my husband didn't use the car all day either. So thought we'd go 1 car, and that freed up a few $1,000s for me to start something. So it wasn't done with any big budget, and I had, good education and some good contacts, but thought, well, I just need to do something completely online. If I want to be at home with the baby and the toddler, I can't be meeting clients. I can't go off consulting. I can't be doing sales calls on a phone all day. I can't be doing somebody else's bookkeeping, because the numbers just don't work for the kind of lifestyle I want. So I looked at, things I could upskill in as a service. That was out. Start an agency, awful, with just so many people to manage. Just that didn't suit as a business model for me. I'd managed some tech startups in the university that, have one-off licensing deal with some one-off big pharma company, and somebody makes millions. They're very nice, but a bit hard to do from home.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I quite like the software side of things. And I was looking online, and I looked at so many. I did so many webinars. I did ones on options trading. Wasn't in a position to invest in property, so that was out. Looked at all sorts. I mean, this was all way pre-crypto and being able to do any kind of day trading. So anyway, I came across Amazon from a friend who I used to go to baby yoga with, of all things, and her husband was selling on Amazon. And so figured out what he did, and I started some products, and they went really, really well. So that was a really good decision to make. It didn't really matter what it was. I was going to do something and do really well with it. It just was the right business model, was the thing to get clear on up front, and then you can always backfill any skills that are missing, or push on if there's some little hump to get over setting something up. But as long as you've got the right business model that's got lots of upside and not lots of hours committed, then you're away. So it was good. I did some online courses. I didn't particularly like them. They all just said buy cheap tap from China, get as much plastic, stack it high, sell it cheap, stick a 0 on the end on your price tag. Didn't seem like very smart business to me, just to be selling stuff that Alibaba and factories in China could sell themselves, which is sort of what's happened. So I did a handmade product that was much more premium, and it wasn't from China, and that worked quite well in my marketing and not being copied, and being able to charge a really premium price, and had it in a nice gift bag. And the thing I bought for about 75 cents sold for about $30. So that was good.
Wow.
By the time I'd added packaging and presented it nicely, and Amazon takes it.
And it wasn't manufactured in China, it was manufactured somewhere else.
Yeah, it was handmade in Nepal with felted wool. So it was a really nice baby product. It was a gift.
That's cool.
That was fun. Yeah, it was really nice, feel good product. I supported a women's charity, disabled women in Kathmandu made the products. And then they would go down to the market and buy fabric to make up the gift bags with to put it in. And there would just be different fabrics every week from what they bought at the market. And they just stitch up a little rectangle bag, put our logo on the front, and ship them off to Amazon for me. It was really fun. I loved it.
love that. I love that. So what made you sell the business?
Well, I was going to have a mortgage for 20 something more years.
Mhm.
And I had the business valued because I'd been trading for a full year and a bit, and I got the tax returns all squared away and did all that stuff. And then I've got a friend who's a business broker, and
Mhm.
he's Australian, but he lives in the States. And so I said, "Oh, Jock, what do you think this business might be worth?" And he's like, "Oh my goodness, you'd get $1 million for that tomorrow." It's like, "Oh, I
Hmm.
thought it was quite good, but didn't realize it was that good." So he found me a buyer right away. The first person that saw it bought it cash. So that was good.
Beautiful.
An investor in Salt Lake City. So I flew over, met with him, gave him some training, gave him the password. He gave me $1 million. Off we went. And
Incredible.
still trading, still going. And I built a tea business with organic loose leaf tea and sold
Mhm.
that. And that one's still doing $1 million a year and has done really, really well as well. So,
So,
um,
so you've done that twice.
yeah. And then I did a bunch of other products as well and just kept an account trading, and buying products, selling them.
So what made you go from starting these businesses to buying businesses?
Well, there was a bit of a middle bit as well, which has been selling ebooks on Amazon, which I'm still doing.
Okay.
Physical products got a bit tricky with COVID.
Mhm.
Hate talking about COVID. It's so boring.
Everything got
So
tricky with COVID.
yeah,
COVID
the
was
shipping
just
was messy.
crazy.
Yeah, factories were closing, shipping was funny. People were buying different stuff on Amazon. Amazon was out of warehouse space because they were full
Yeah.
of PPE and sourdough starter kits and
Yeah.
whatever was buying on Amazon back then. So Amazon's stocks went through the roof. They ran out of space and people were buying completely different stuff. And my
Mhm.
shipping lines were all over the place. My suppliers were all over the place. I was like, right, I need to do something completely different for a bit. So I
Yeah.
did ebooks. So I'm still selling lots of ebooks on Amazon, and that's been great.
Are these
And
your ebooks or are they somebody else's ebooks?
I pay people to write them. So I own them, but I pay a ghostwriter to write them, which is
Okay.
cool. So I use an agency and I do some research on good keywords, give them a brief, they turn it around in a few weeks. It's a great model, by the way. If you have sort of more entrepreneurial people rather than investor type people listening, this is a really smart business model.
Yeah.
So I'm still doing that all the time now. I'm launching a book at the moment that's not under my name. I do sometimes write books under my name when it is a thing I am an expert on, but mostly it's, research what's in demand, feed that brief to a good writing team, get a great front cover, throw it on Amazon for $3 or $5, and then it just sells forevermore. And
Hmm.
Amazon takes their third, but there's no, website or publishing houses or manuscripts or printing books to in bulk. They just print on demand as the orders come through.
Right.
So
That's
that's been
awesome.
really good.
So
So
what made you make the last move that you made moving your family?
So we were living in the city, which was all
Mhm.
very fine, but I'd say the Wellington climate's probably closest to Seattle if you had to pick somewhere in the States that everybody will
Okay.
know. I mean, it's
So it's
pretty
really
wet and
wet?
windy and wet.
Yeah.
Coastal, not hot. Lovely on a good day, but tough climate. And when I
Yeah.
was working from home, it was a bit better because I'd see daylight at least. But Wellington in the winter's a bit of a slog.
Oh,
So we thought we'd move to the South Island where there is glorious sunshine, beautiful, beautiful scenery, lots of outdoors activities, lovely place for the children to grow up. So
yeah.
we moved to the South Island, and that's where we are now in Wanaka. So,
And how long have you been there?
ooh, 8 years now.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
So
you go from starting businesses. Now, by the way, let's go back for a second. So you mentioned that you were in the bit you were what you did was tech transfer.
yeah,
Talk about
yeah.
what tech transfer is for those people that are listening that don't know.
Brilliant. So most universities have this setup where all the academics who are doing their research or the grad students who are coming up with clever ideas, they've come up with some scientific development or
Mhm.
some computer science thing. The university technically, as their employer, owns that intellectual property. And the
Right.
academics are generally happy to be academics. They could have probably gone off and worked for Microsoft or biotech firms if they'd wanted to go down that track, or invent something in their own garage. But they've chosen to be educators and teach and do their research. So
Right.
this research output that the universities legally own still needs the involvement of the inventor, but the university will file the patent and look to commercialize it. So no small university can do clinical trials and take a drug to market. You have to partner. So my job was taking the university's intellectual property and trying to find the best people who would take it to market and give us a really good licensing deal and pay us, a handsome price for this unique bit of research or science or whatever the invention was. So one might be a website that does meteorological modeling, and the next one might be a waste liquid disposal kind of catalyst, clever bit of chemistry, all sorts. Some were quite unglamorous, involving sewage ponds and liquid waste and combustible vats. And then others were, high-tech robotics and everything in between. So I got the science portfolio, which was really cool. So
the tech transfer thing is they come up with an invention. Your job is to go out and help them make it commercially viable.
Yeah. And the academics really want to stay in academia, and they really want to see their invention being used rather than shelved in a lab. So it's good, it works for everyone. And private sector wants to get their hands on novel inventions that they get proprietary access to. So it's a really nice job. It's lovely. The scientists are grateful. The private sector is grateful. There's investors wanting to jump on these things. They're pretty early stage, obviously. It's kind of like angel investing. If you get other money in there, it's pretty early. And, they can be years of a drug trial to get through, or it can be a one-off robotics thing and it's live next week kind of thing. So lots of different time scales, lots of big budgets, lots of very strong personalities. Oh my goodness, quirky people. But sometimes there'd be, really talented graduate student who just finished a PhD on the subject, and you make them the founding CEO and you build a board around them. There's some really cool stuff we could do. So it was a great job. Loved it.
That's cool. Okay. I'm glad we got that cleared up, because I can imagine people writing me going, okay, what's a tech transfer, right?
Yeah. So, tech transfers, the university's commercial arm. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So you start buying companies, and you're still doing that today, right?
Yeah. Apart from the only slight changes, I'd say I'm buying websites, not the actual companies. So I buy websites that have traffic or customers going to the sites. They're either reading a blog or a newsletter or buying something from a review site. And so I buy the sites, not the company. I just take the domain, host it on WordPress, which is nice and easy, and run the whole thing from New Zealand. So I never have, because I live in New Zealand and I pay tax here, I don't want to duplicate all that admin tax and stuff in the States. If you can avoid US tax by not having a company in the States. And I think to be a director, you've got to be over that. I don't even know how it works. I've never tried to run a US company from here. So I don't want to buy a company. I just want the assets out of a company or from an individual. And then I set up a website running smoothly that I've bought. Make sure that there's advertising on it. Any of the links that people click earn me commission. There's some variations on that. Sometimes it's like a directory site or a review site. So I've got a site that reviews all the classes on Masterclass and Udemy, which are two kind of online learning platforms. And every time somebody Googles, is the Mark Cuban Masterclass worth it? They'll find my article on the top of Google, and then they'll go and order the course and sign up to Masterclass, and I get commission because they've come in through my unique link, which
perfect.
Nice business. So that's what I do. So I bought that course reviewers site. I haven't actually published the Mark Cuban one. It should be live by the time this podcast goes live, because it only came out last week and I've just reviewed it. So I've written the review but not published it yet. So there's ones there, like, which is the top one on Masterclass. I've just done Esther Perel, Martha Stewart. There's all these celebrities do online education. So it's not really because it's a celebrity, but I review the quality of the courses because I've done online education for so many years. So I taught people how to buy Amazon products, and I've taught people how to do ebook publishing as well. So I've still got lots of students doing publishing and things. So feel quite happy to sit and watch online courses and review them. And so that site earns me money through those affiliate links. And then I've got other sites that are more like a review of a physical thing. Like I've got a guitar website. So people want to know what's the best amp to buy to go with their style of guitar playing. And they Google it, find my site, read the review, buy the product from my link, and that earns money as well.
That's
So
cool.
I've got a few like that I've bought. I've got a newsletter business I bought as well that makes 90K profit a year, and I do nothing, like actually nothing. So sometimes I inherit some staff or like contractors, not permanent employees, but sometimes there's a contractor comes over and just keeps operating the site that I bought. Sometimes my team slots it into existing operations. But now I've got a few of them, and the deal's been getting bigger because I've got a bit more confident with what to look for and what criteria I have. And you certainly get more for your money. It's kind of like with property and everything, the bigger your budget, the better the deals are, not just as a percentage return. Now you're just getting a high quality of stock and things are easier. Little ones that are scrappy or need doing up are always harder. So the last business I bought was $350 something thousand US. That's quite a lot of New Zealand dollars going out.
Yeah.
But it earns in USD and it's really steady month to month, week to week. And so there's a few things to get right with buying online businesses. You've got lots of different business models out there. So I personally don't buy e-commerce businesses. I don't buy a Shopify store with $50,000 worth of crystal inventory or supplements business on Amazon or anything like that. I don't buy physical goods. I like online only all the way. I like newsletters a lot. I like blogs, just like a quality content site that Google has had indexed for years that just stays at the top of the Google results, and you can buy them. And sometimes they're for sale on a big commercial platform, like Flipper or Investors Club. And then sometimes they're for sale on a little funny Facebook group where there's no broker ever validated anything. And sometimes you can approach the owner of a site and say, hey, would you like to sell your very nice blog on this subject? Because you've researched to see that that's a good subject for a commercial blog. And they've got a hobby one, and 50K cash to them might change that world, but it could turn into 10K a month for you forevermore in it.
Wow.
And
you teach people to do this?
Yes.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So you wrote a book. And I've interviewed a lot of authors, and everybody's answer is different to this question. What was it that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back that made you decide that you were going to write your first book? We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out Calendly.com/Rio760.